Hey, it's Stu Peters and Richard Leonard for Law Dog Coffee Company. Welcome to Law Dog Coffee Company. Some heroes wear capes, ours wear a badge. Every single purchase you make goes to support law enforcement. So if you love the cops, if you support law enforcement, if you don't agree with defunding the police, if you want to make sure that they have good equipment, if you want to take care of law enforcement families, this is the only coffee that you want to drink. And not only that, their purpose is great, but the coffee is even better. You can sign up online very easily for freshly roasted specialty coffee to your door. You can choose weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly deliveries. Gifts and apparel also available. Law Dog Coffee Company, located at lawdogcoffee.com. Lawdogcoffee.com. That's lawdogcoffee.com. Use the promo code PCRadio for 10% off every purchase.
Broadcasting live on the Ops Lens app, iHeartRadio, Mojo 50 Radio, and online worldwide at thepcradioshow.com.
Broadcasting live from the Law Dog Coffee Studios. My name is Stu Peters. That's Richard Leonard. PC Radio is live. Welcome to this glorious Friday. It's Friday. I love Fridays. It's usually Casual Friday, but in honor of our guest today, you know, we respect his time and we respect yours as well. Thank you for tuning in. Mojo 50 Radio is live on iHeartRadio, where we address nearly 1 million people every single day, over 1 million people now, every single day on iHeartRadio. We could not be more humbled by you being here. Make sure that you visit lawdogcoffee.com. That's lawdogcoffee.com, an official sponsor of PC Radio. And by the way, if you're a cop and you don't drink Law Dog Coffee, it's probably because either A, you don't drink coffee, period, which makes you a weirdo, or B, because you haven't heard of it. Check them out, lawdogcoffee.com. Now, if you're not a cop, but you don't believe in the whole defund movement and you think police are essential and you support your police, you can show that by going to lawdogcoffee.com, because every purchase that you make of Law Dog Coffee products goes to help law enforcement. You can find out how by visiting the website. The links are on thepcradioshow.com. If you go to Law Dog directly, make sure that you use promo code PC Radio to get 10% off and buy a bunch of it. Buy a bunch of coffee. There's gifts on there. There's swag. There's coffee mugs and all kinds of different blends of coffee. Richard, do you have a favorite blend?
The Warrior blend is by far my favorite.
The Warrior blend, all right. And then there's the True Blue blend, all kinds of different coffee for every different palate, if you will. So make sure to just get over there. The Law Dog Coffee movement is on, lawdogcoffee.com. We had a pretty controversial show yesterday. We talked a little bit about people that, you know, may not think that you have your own critical thinking skills, your own freedom to be able to believe what you want to believe. We discussed that. We hashed it over. I'm kind of over it. I'm not going to bring it up again. But I just want to make sure that we get you. We have 100% you. You haven't taken any remdesivir or whatever that stuff is called. You're not on any steroids. Nothing is bothering you today. You're 100% in good health, right?
I am in good health, and I am of sound mind and judgment.
Yesterday, Nancy Pelosi came out shocking voters, shocking citizens and Americans, shocking the entire world, talking about invoking the 25th Amendment. And we're going to talk about that now. Here to join us is Brett Kokinadis. He is basically I would say, would you agree, kind of a PC Radio contributor now?
Absolutely.
I think so. This is the third time on the show. It's been great.
Yeah.
Happy to be back.
Brett Kokinadis has been a technology entrepreneur for over 20 years in communications, mobile software, and computer vision technologies. He's the founder of New Mexico Democrats for Democracy. He walked away from the Democratic Party. He ran away and was recently a Republican candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives in New Mexico's 1st Congressional District. I almost run out of breath going through all of your accolades every time you come on the show. So thank God that I don't smoke, and I am of good, what do you call that? Good physical stature. Just like the president, by the way, who beat the coronavirus in, what was it, 3 days? He said yesterday, I'd have a rally tonight. Let's see if we can get together a last minute rally here tonight. The guy is not your typical 74-year-old. He beat the coronavirus like Tyson would beat me up in a ring, and he's a specimen. And now Nancy Pelosi talking about invoking the 25th Amendment. For those listeners here who don't follow, politics like that, or they're not, constitutional scholars, if you will. Brett, take us through exactly what that means when she says that she's going to invoke the 25th Amendment.
Well, you've put me on a pedestal. I don't know if I would consider myself a constitutional scholar by any means, but
well, give it your best shot.
looking at what's going through the media, Nancy Pelosi, I mean, pretty much if the 25th was to be enacted, it would most likely be enacted by the vice president. It usually does not originate in Congress. And, digging through that today, reading some articles, of course, Nancy is using this as a political weapon against Republican incumbents, saying that, if they don't jump on board and support her with this, that their seats are going to be on the line eventually. Now, that's kind of an empty threat because, again, it still has to originate from the position of Mike Pence. The cabinet secretaries, have to sign on, which we all know that a majority of them align themselves and support the president for re-election and have their full support behind him. So I really don't see how Nancy's going to be able to pull this off. I think this is another soundbite. This is another piece of, I guess, weaponry in Nancy's tool belt here that she's going to try to wield out. Coming up, I think October 15th is going to be the next presidential debate. On Wednesday, we had the Mike Pence and Kamala Harris debate, where even Mike Pence came out and said, we've been this administration that's been under attack for the past 3 years. Imagine all the things that President Trump has gotten done for this country pre-COVID and even during COVID while being under the constant attack of Nancy Pelosi and progressive Democrats.
Well, and let's not forget that it's all coming back now. I mean, we talk about the economy. Clearly, it crashed a little bit, I guess we could say, when COVID hit. And it seems to be coming back. I mean, he talks about it all the time.
This is the thing, and it's been on the debates too. This is the thing that really kind of irks me when they say that the president is responsible for the failing economy under COVID. And in reality, the president had very little to do with that. Yes, we had some travel bans that saved Americans from China. But when we look at places like my home state in New Mexico, where we still have COVID lockdown procedures and restrictions, while other states across the country are opening up, they're getting back to work. Some of them, including Florida, have pledged not to reverse their decision and go back down on lockdown, even if COVID numbers do increase. The economic impacts are happening at the state level. And in most cases, those are happening in states that are controlled by Democratic governors.
Yeah, so you're saying that you have a tyrant for a governor similar to the governor that we have here. It's preposterous, the amount of hypocrisy that comes from these people. The rules for thee but not for me, the ordinances for thee but not for me, laws that don't apply to them. You see Nancy Pelosi herself. I mean, and then the media is 100% complicit in this scam. They don't even hold her accountable, not even for 2 seconds, Brett.
Yeah, and just as the president was being airlifted to the military hospital, our governor came out a day later saying a custodial worker in the governor's mansion tested positive for COVID. And just to be sure, the governor was going to self-quarantine for 14 days. Of course, our media ran with that, but you can see that was just kind of a competing headline with the president. Our Democrat governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, is very competitive. She wants the sound bites. She wants to have her name in the highlight in the Democrat Party. She was being courted potentially for Biden's VP pick. That didn't work out. Now she's trying to go for Cabinet Secretary of Health. She's just going tit for tat with the president. President's got sick. He got COVID. He recovered. Now our governor's saying, well, now I'm sick too, or I could be sick. So look at me. It's a competition, and it's not only just a competition with the COVID restrictions about who can be more strict under the disguise of safety, but it's also going to be about this competition about who can destroy these local economies under the COVID, so that they can blame the president for disastrous economic impact under supposedly his control. And that's just not the case. I mean, Americans, I think, are well aware that other states are doing better than perhaps their own home state. And that's because they probably have Republican leadership or leadership that realizes that we need to get back to work.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of these places like where you're at and where we're at, we've talked about it before, but these administrations, like the governor, they refuse to acknowledge the science and the numbers and the data. It seems like it's a fear-mongering And like you said, a competition to see who can F up their state more than the next person.
The numbers that they ignore, I mean,
it.
right out here by the CDC, if you're under 49, you have a 99.98% chance of surviving this thing. Brett, when we're talking like the other night during the vice presidential debate, which, by the way, we'll get into whether or not you think that it has an impact on the general election or not, and we'll save that for a conversation here in a second or two because I'd be interested to know what you think. But when they're attacking the president for the coronavirus and his lack of response, let's just say that the president let's just say that he didn't do something, which we all know is BS, okay? We all know that the president takes the coronavirus seriously. He had the COVID. He beat the Rona. He's in that age group over 70% where there's a 94.6% chance of survival, and that's over 70. So that includes people that are 103 years old that have congestive heart failure and pneumonia. So they still have a 94.6% chance of beating the thing. So my question here is that we're just a little bit over the 200,000 dead from this thing, but we can't talk about that as a realistic number, because in Milwaukee, for example, you don't even ever have to have a positive coronavirus test to die from COVID-19. So you don't die from coronavirus, you die with the COVID, right? And so we don't really even know that 200,000 people have died because of COVID-19. That number could be as low as 5,000 or 4,000 or even none because of all the pre-existing conditions that these people have when they're dying from this thing, similar to the flu. Influenza B takes 100,000 people every year. I don't remember the last conversation that we had about what your favorite mask color was, or if you were going to wear a neck gaiter or a decorative scarf, or if it was okay for you to pull your t-shirt up over your head when you walked in to sit down at the table, which, by the way, then it's safe to take the damn thing off. The whole thing is absolutely the biggest scam to ever be perpetuated on the American people. Why are U.S. citizens, why are potential voters and voters, why are people like you and I sitting back idly allowing the media to run with this and for liberal, radical progressives to continue to pull the wool over our eyes and tell us that this thing is something that it just is not?
Well, the issue is I think there's a lot of people that do think like us. But from the very beginning, and we've seen the stories kind of just progress over time. We've seen, reports come out saying that the normal testing procedure used for viral infections wasn't followed. It was measured in cycles, and under normal circumstances, I guess the normal threshold is 40 cycles to determine if you are positive for a viral infection. Our Department of Health, our governor, was asked about New Mexico's testing protocol, and they admitted that they were following the lower threshold of 30 to 33 testing cycles. So this just means that you do not have a high enough viral load to normally be classified as an infected person or a carrier. Okay, it doesn't mean that the virus doesn't exist in your body. It just doesn't mean that it's at a level where you're contagious or where you're experiencing symptoms. So the first question is about all these testing numbers that are coming out. How valid are the testing numbers?
Right.
Then we've had reports, like you're saying, where people have died from underlying health conditions, or they've gotten into a car accident but tested positive for COVID. And this is all because of the monies that are coming to states like New Mexico for COVID relief. They're getting tens of thousands of dollars in some cases per COVID case. So in a state where New Mexico, where we have trashed our economy, we spent our surplus of $2 billion, we're looking for ways to cut the budget, fill the budget, fund education. What better way than just racketing up those numbers so that the state gets more relief from federal dollars?
Yeah.
Brett, does the money come for deaths or just confirmed cases or both?
I'm not 100% certain on it. I want to say that it comes from positive test cases,
right?
Because the number is quite substantial.
Yeah.
And when you're having that type of influence or benefit from those numbers, I mean, literally in New Mexico, we have on our highways and freeways those digital signs that say, "Keep New Mexico safe. Go get tested." Every Thursday, our governor comes out and talks about, even if you don't really feel that sick, go get tested. Well, why? Is it because they want to keep people safe in quarantine, or is it because they want the revenue? And I think it's a little bit of both. But in the case of our situation in New Mexico, I definitely think that with our governor's policy and spending habits, it's because of the money.
Going back to the vice presidential debate, and I'll just end that by saying I don't remember the last time I went in to have a popsicle stick shoved down my throat to get a strep test without a sore throat. I mean, there's prerequisites to getting tested. Right. How about a little bit of individual, creative, and critical, free, independent thinking? Use your brains out there. So going back to Wednesday nights, there's treachery afoot. Going back to, but the relentless truth-seeking club, the Relentless Truth Seekers Club, they will not stand for this. Going back to Wednesday night's vice presidential debate, Kamala Harris, Vice President Pence, a lot of disrespect going on there, just as Biden disrespected the sitting president during that debate when he told him to shut up and he called him a clown and all those kinds of things. A lot of eye-rolling and snickering and sideways comments from Kamala Harris. Obviously, Pence handled the crap out of her. He beat her hands down. There's no way around it. That was a landslide victory by Pence, and obviously the mainstream media won't tell you that. They're trying to figure out different ways that they can point out, oh, but she said this and she said that, but it's all lies. It's all lies. Does any of it really actually matter? How much influence, in your opinion, does the vice presidential debate have on the general election that we have coming up here in just under a month?
Well, watching what's happening in our state, we had, I believe, over 321,000 absentee ballots that were requested. And a majority of those, I want to say it's about 40%, were requested by Democrat voters. We just started early voting on the 6th at a county clerk office. The lines were long. There's lines long today. There's rumors that our governor is going to shut down in-person voting under the disguise of COVID. They've made a statement saying that they don't plan to do that. But you have groups coming out saying that undecided voters and focus groups found Kamala Harris to be abrasive and condescending during the debate. Mm-hmm. So if her goal was to win those independents and undecided voters over, she's failed.
I think the only goal that the Democratic Party really had for her, and that the Biden campaign for her had, was to walk out of there with leaving a trail of blood. And I don't think she did it.
No, she definitely didn't. And she just looked like she was perpetuating more lies about her career, about her record, about where Joe Biden stands on these positions. When they talked about the Green New Deal, and they said, "Well, we don't support the Green New Deal." Well, Kamala did.
Right.
They want to have their own version of the Green New Deal, which AOC is on the advisory group for Joe Biden. So it's going to be very similar to what the Green New Deal was. Same thing with the fracking issue.
Richard, is he? I'm sorry. Excuse me, Mr. Kokinadis. Is Brett on the show talking about facts? Is he bringing up? Is he?
I don't. It sounds like it to me. And Brett, you're way out of line.
That's disrespectful. Second of all, that it's highly racist. We don't. Be careful. We don't want to get in any censors or shadow bans here. I think you're right. I mean, all kidding aside, I don't know that the average voter really cares. I think there was maybe back in the Quayle vice presidential debate, I can remember some sound bites, and I was, I think, 8 years old at the time. So, I don't think that anybody's mind would be changed one way or another, whether they're voting for Biden or Trump, based on the performance of either Pence or the disrespectful prosecutor that jailed thousands of black people for marijuana crimes, who now, by the way, contradicts herself and says, Brett, that she wants to legalize marijuana. I mean,
that's right,
people have to sit back and say, look, and I said yesterday on the show, I don't think that this election is going to be about who the voter trusts more. I think, and I'll let you opine on this, I think it's going to be about who they distrust less.
No, you can phrase it a dozen different ways. It doesn't really matter. What it comes down to is, who do you believe is going to do what they say they're going to do? And like the president has said in his debate, and as Pence has said before, Biden has been involved in D.C. for 47 years.
Yeah.
What do you have to show for it?
Keep saying it. I just keep saying it over and over again. I mean, and nobody can tell me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Clout Hub, I'm on Parler. I've invited so many people to tell me, just give me one example of something that this guy has done to help any community, whether it be black people, immigrants, white America. I mean, he is a racist. He is a known racist. I just don't understand. Is it because these people in these communities and these people that the media wants to tell us all are oppressed, and the black people and the systemic racism? Is it because that group of people just doesn't watch, they don't pay attention, and they only absorb what they see on social media? Is that what's going on here?
Well, I've had this conversation with other candidates, voters, and friends, and what it really boils down to is how the two parties message. Being a walkaway Democrat, I have a little bit more experience in working in that party and how they message. The first thing is Democrats look at emotion, okay? They don't look at facts and evidence. And Republicans will come out with the facts and evidence, but don't know how to articulate that and combat the emotion. At the end of the day, when we look at the issues that the Democrat Party and the Republican Party platforms stand on, they're relatively similar. There's not going to be a voter in this country that says, I don't want good, reliable, quality health care. There's not going to be a voter in this country that says, I don't want our kids to have access to great education. There's not going to be a voter that says, I don't want crime in my city. Right? The problem is, how do we get to that solution? And Democrats really don't offer that solution. Republicans come in with a solution, and Democrats will go, well, that's bad because, it's going to do this, that, and the other thing. Same thing when we have the issues with the border wall. Keep in mind, President Trump has been in office for less than 48 months compared to Joe Biden's 47 years.
Good point.
And this is a huge thing. Look at all the things that his administration has done. Peace in the Middle East Accord, the Abraham Accord, which was amazing strategy. USMCA, that's going to be a huge benefit to this country. When we start talking about border security, Democrats in our state, we have huge crime in Albuquerque, huge illegal immigration issues at our border. And when we start talking about border security, a lot of people that live in those areas are in full support of that. When you come back up to northern New Mexico, hundreds of miles away from the border, they'll complain, we don't need the wall. Well, that's because you're not dealing with the issue face-to-face in your backyard.
Right.
Well, I think,
and they'll
say that. Go ahead, Brett. Finish your point.
Oh, I was just going to say, they'll come out and they'll say, what about the children? But they don't really understand that these children are victims of human trafficking. They're potentially with people that they don't belong to. And these are issues that we have to address when they come onto our property. We're having the same issue in Santa Fe and in Albuquerque with human trafficking. And it's a topic that's not being addressed. The president wants to address those things. And the Democrats will just say, well, yeah, those exist, but we don't want to do that because that might make us racist, or that might hurt some people.
That's
so
the dumbest thing ever.
That
argument that the president and the government has been taking children from their kids or children from their parents is the dumbest thing that I've heard almost ever in this administration. Why is it that the president now is responsible for separating kids from their parents when these parents made the conscious choice to enter the country illegally? If I go, if I put my kids in the car.
When I was on the campaign trail, Rich, I talked to Homeland Security, and I sat down with them and I said, all right, tell me what's going on, because the Democrats are saying we're holding these kids. What they told me is these children are coming over, the parents are unwilling to take a paternity test, a DNA test, they don't have any documentation, and that they're being held for a trial and for investigation. So at any time, they can be returned to their country, deported at our expense, but they choose to stay there. I don't know about you, but if I was stuck in another country with my child, and that was my legitimate child, I'd be more than happy to take a DNA swab test to prove that I was the parental guardian.
Absolutely. And furthermore, if I put my kids in the back seat of my truck and I go rob a bank and then I get caught, aren't they going to take my kids and put them somewhere that, somebody that can take care of them?
Well, they're definitely going to take you and put you somewhere, and then you'll be separated from your kids.
So why is it a travesty that these illegal aliens are having their kids taken from them when they're breaking the goddamn law?
It's all lies. It's all lies. It's just like it's the same thing as that you're racist because you love the cops, okay? Stupid. Or you're racist because you're going to vote for Trump, and it's all lies. These people that vote the party line, that they will blindly vote for Democrats no matter what. That is the thing that we have to change in a minute or less. Brett, you walked away. How do we get to these people and highlight for them, look, this is a lie. These are all lies. How do we do that?
I don't think it's necessarily that you need to focus on the lies. Like in our state has been primarily blue and controlled by Democrats for decades. You know, the statement would be, how has that worked out for you? We're at the bottom of every good list and at the top of every bad list in this country. And when we start looking at the things that are happening at the state levels, you know, what's happening to the economy under the COVID restrictions, what's happening to education, you know, all these issues. If you live in a Democrat state, don't blame the president. Blame your Democrat elected officials because they're the ones causing this issue.
Brett
Kokinadis.
Sorry, man. Up against a hard break.
Well put.
Brett Kokinadis, founder, New Mexico Democrats for Democracy, 20-year technology entrepreneur, former Republican candidate for Congress, a walk-away Democrat, and a contributor here on PC Radio. Broadcasting live from the Law Dog Coffee Studios. My name is Stu Peters. That's Richard Leonard. We're going to be coming back here shortly with more from Joe the Cop on this Force Matrix Friday.
Yes.
You love it. Don't go anywhere.
We will force votes.
We will not stop.
Any Republican senator is part of the cover-up.
What the f?
Impeachment.
Impeachment.
This is madness.
The PC Radio Show with Stu and Rich. Back in a minute.
Hey, it's Stu Peters and Richard Leonard for Law Dog Coffee Company. Welcome to Law Dog Coffee Company. Some heroes wear capes, ours wear a badge. Every single purchase you make goes to support law enforcement. So if you love the cops, if you support law enforcement, if you don't agree with defunding the police, if you want to make sure that they have good equipment, if you want to take care of law enforcement families, this is the only coffee that you want to drink. And not only that, their purpose is great, but the coffee is even better. You can sign up online very easily for freshly roasted specialty coffee to your door. You can choose weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly deliveries. Gifts and apparel also available. Law Dog Coffee Company, located at lawdogcoffee.com. Lawdogcoffee.com. That's lawdogcoffee.com. Use the promo code PC Radio for 10% off every purchase.
Prop 25 ends our right to put up bail for anyone, even though they may have been racially profiled. Prop 25 replaces bail with computer algorithms. Academic studies show that these algorithms are biased. Some call them black boxes. And Prop 25's new bureaucracy delays justice for innocent people stuck in jail. The NAACP asks you to vote no on Proposition 25.
Hey, it's Stu Peters for Johnson Jewelers, located in Woodbury, Minnesota, but more importantly, located online worldwide at johnsonjewelers.com. Why is that important to you? Well, because if you have been left behind or you have discovered a family heirloom or something that's important to you, maybe it's grandma's birthstone, or maybe it's a pendant or a family crest, maybe it's grandpa's ring, but it doesn't quite fit you, or maybe it needs to be restored, or you see something completely different in mind. Why shove that thing in a safety deposit box? Why put it aside or put it in a shadow box or just break it out every once in a while to show the grandkids? Instead, you could wear that with a custom piece of jewelry designed for you, specifically by johnsonjewelers.com. A quick visit to the website, a couple of emails exchanged, and maybe a few phone calls, and you will have that custom piece of jewelry that means something for you. Visit them online, worldwide, johnsonjewelers.com, johnsonjewelers.com. That's johnsonjewelers.com.
Broadcasting live on the OpsLens app, iHeartRadio, Mojo 50 Radio, and online worldwide at thepcradioshow.com.
Man, Intern Boy is getting really good at that.
Yeah.
He brings it in, and then that guitar hits just at the right time. It just gets me all excited, and I start feeling like, getting up, and I kind of want to do one of these numbers. What's that called? The air guitar? I'm not really good at karaoke. And the facial expressions when I do the air guitar probably leave a little bit to be desired too. That's why, this whole TV thing is new to me. The radio thing, we could do that all day long, but knowing that somebody's viewing me while I'm on the radio is kind of a difficult thing. But in the world of social media and in the world of TV, and we got to do all these interviews with the Fox News Channel and Newsmax and the One American News Network and all these people that I think will have me on in the future. It's important that people are able to see you if you want to be on TV. So it is Force Matrix Friday, Richard, and a lot of things have been going on Wednesday night. You and I were, it is your favorite. Wednesday night, you and I were working in Minneapolis the day that Derek Chauvin walked out of jail on $1 million bond. The headlines, by the way, were really interesting from local and national media. It didn't even really allude to the fact that he was out on bail. It didn't even say he posts $1 million bail. It doesn't say Chauvin comes up with $100,000 to exercise his constitutional right to be free pending the outcome of his trial. Instead, the headlines were something like, Derek Chauvin released from Minnesota prison. And they do this kind of stuff. It's all for optics. They do it on purpose to make people go to the streets, hurt police, burn things down, and destroy business. It's absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, it's, if
here we go. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but I'm already fired up about it.
I can see it. Yeah, like the vein is starting. That one that I point out all the time. I can see it coming.
So if we're in North Minneapolis, right, and two black guys shoot each other, one of them goes to jail, right, because he didn't die and he didn't get shot, but the other dude dies in the street.
Yeah.
And he goes to jail, then there are people all over the neighborhood in the streets with airbrush T-shirts and all kinds of shit saying free
Watch
Pookie.
your mouth.
Yeah, free Nuck from jail because he innocent, he didn't do nothing.
That's racist.
But he's on the camera that's on the street corner shooting the other guy across the street. And that guy also has a constitutional right to bail.
Yep.
Just like Mr. Chauvin has the constitutional right to bail.
Yeah.
Now, we discussed that he might have been safer in jail than out on the streets, and I guess that's a conversation for another time, but we already had it.
To that, your point was tell that to a guy in jail, right?
Right, yeah. So why would anybody be pissed that he came up with $100,000 to get out of jail?
I don't know.
It's stupid.
Yeah, free Nook. Free him. Free Big D. Free. But there was nobody out on the streets with an airbrushed photo of Derek Chauvin. There was nobody out there with signs that said "Free the homie Derek." And I get it, man. It's absolutely ass backwards. This portion of PC Radio brought to you by Law Dog Coffee. Here's a guy who drinks Law Dog Coffee, and he's on with us every single Friday, which makes him a PC Radio contributor. Joe the Cop, a 23-year law enforcement officer, a currently working cop in America somewhere. We can't tell you where, but welcome to the show.
Thanks, dude. Glad to be back again.
I don't know if you heard part of Richard's stumbling, bumbling rant there, where he was trying to articulate the how preposterous the hypocrisy is in the fact that we're now not celebrating the fact that somebody who's accused of a crime is being released from jail and exercising his constitutional right, but instead we're going to burn everything down. Joe, to that you say what?
I mean, it's a standard response from Democratic, liberal, cesspool, shithole cities. This is what you can expect.
Oh, boy.
They're now doing it in Wisconsin, somewhere in Wisconsin, because the district attorney there refused to charge an officer for shooting a black suspect. And the officer is black himself. They are now in residential areas, Stu, throwing rocks through people's windows. Now, did I not say just a couple weeks on the show that it was only a matter of time before it progressed to that, from businesses to actual residential areas?
Yeah, you did. You called it. Absolutely.
Okay. So the next step from that is going to be they're actually going to try to remove people from their homes and attack them, if not kill them. And from there, they will be going to the suburbs. It was actually reported, if you read it, because I posted it, it was actually reported that some of the residents came out of their homes and said, "Why are you doing this? We actually support the cause of Black Lives Matter, but you're actually attacking your supporters."
Mm-hmm.
Now,
these
are professional victims.
I have long said that Black Lives Matter, is a saying, and we can all agree with that. If somebody walks up to you, Joe, and says Black Lives Matter, your response is going to be what? Yeah, well, they do. Of course they do. We all know that. The group Black Lives Matter, on the other hand, the political party, the movement Black Lives Matter, the organization Black Lives Matter, the Democrat Party funding Black Lives Matter, the Act Blue contributing Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group, and they burn things down, and they destroy people's lives, and they assault people, and they hurt people, and they kill people and all those different things. But what's going to happen here, and that I've been trying to articulate, is that group, if somebody wasn't racist before, they will be now.
Absolutely.
That's correct. And not only that, if somebody comes up to me and says Black Lives Matter, I will not be goaded into that discussion with them. I have said this before. Of course, I support the concept of Black Lives Matter. I do not support the organization. The organization is radicalized. It's violent. It is Marxist. Okay? It's a group of thugs that are now getting donations from every scared entity out there, all these organizations, Amazon, Comcast, because nobody wants to seem racist. This was all planned out. And instead of people saying, you know what, no, I'm not going to endorse or donate to a group that advocates for violence against the government, advocates for violence against law enforcement, while simultaneously ignoring the epidemic, of black-on-black homicides in liberal cities. So somebody says to me, Black Lives Matter, I'm just going to laugh, because to me it's just funny. Obviously, black lives do not matter under certain criteria. The 9-year-old kid in Chicago a black kid who was executed, okay, in a gang dispute, and he was just the target. Okay, his father, they were mad at his father, and they executed him. This happened in 2014, I believe. Stu, I can't even tell you his name. But doesn't his life matter?
Should. And so
but it doesn't.
Black Lives Matter, we all can agree on the idea, like you said. But it seems that in some of these urban neighborhoods where black-on-black crime is super elevated, well, do Black Lives matter to those guys?
No. And they don't matter to the politicians, Richard. They don't. When Kamala Harris sits on stage and calls herself black or African American, she's lying, because she's not African American. She's Jamaican and she's Native American. So to me, that's completely, it's, the Elizabeth Warren, the Pocahontas, the liars. I have to lie to fake like I'm something that I'm not so that I can pander to your votes. And Joe, I know that you don't like to get political with this stuff, but that's where it always comes back to the politics of this. That's why we're in the position that we're in. That's why the police are standing down in these cities, because they're Democratic cesspools. They're Democratic strongholds. They are liberal, progressively run cities with worthless people that are elected representatives like Mayor Jacob Fry in Minneapolis, or like Melvin Carter in St. Paul, or like Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. And, so it always eventually ultimately comes back to the elected representatives. And those elected representatives are now infiltrating the offices of America's top cops, who have rolled over and are playing dead. And that trickles down to the law enforcement officer, the cop that's on the street that wants to go in there and preserve the city that he cares about, but he can't do it, because if he does, he's going to lose his job, he's going to get fired, he's going to lose his pension, his 401k, his high five, his para, everything that he's ever worked hard for, the shit that he paid for to go to school for, everything that he's sacrificed, putting his life on the line, running towards gunfire. He's going to be criminally prosecuted, and then he's going to be come after by the DOJ for civil rights violations. How anybody can do your job today, Joe, first of all, I thank you. I thank you wholeheartedly. I really, really appreciate it. But how you can do it every single day is beyond me.
Yep, I agree.
Well, Sue, I don't want to do it if this is what it's going to come down to. I pointed this out a few weeks ago. Okay, what we have now are cops no longer being bystanders. They're actually now arresting the victims of the crime and not arresting the real criminals. So I've said this before. The logical conclusion here, sooner or later, a citizen or a group of citizens are going to have to resist the police.
Yeah.
Okay. Not because they committed a crime, but because they did commit a crime, and now they could be getting themselves arrested. It's just a logical thing, because at the point where the police start arresting the victims, they are now active conspirators in this. They are actively conspiring with these domestic terrorists.
It happened in St. Louis with the McCloskeys. They've been indicted.
Right. Okay, see, they're here again. At some point, a citizen or a group of citizens will realize that the source of most of these problems are these corrupt district attorneys who are shielded by the law. And at that point, they may decide to take matters into their own hands. I never thought in my 23 years of doing this job, Stu, that I would be here rationalizing that this is a logical conclusion. But at some point, this is what is going to happen. We are not meant to be governed this way. We are not meant to be governed we are not meant to be governed under the boot heel of 1% that wants to punish you for defending your home while protecting the criminal and officially categorizing the criminal as a victim. We were not meant to be governed this way. And at some point, I believe that a person who is pushed to an extreme, or even a patriot, if you will have to take matters into his own hands. I don't see, this is not something that we want. But to me, the conclusion is inescapable that is going to come to that. At some point, people will wake up and say, wait a minute, hold on. If I allow you to remove me from my home for defending myself, now my home is vulnerable. My family is vulnerable. My pets are vulnerable from the same people that I protected myself against. And in that moment, when they feel cornered, they may react violently towards law enforcement.
And what about this idea, Joe, that the cops just don't arrest them? You know, they go to a call where, let's say I, as a homeowner, go out to defend my property because somebody's breaking the windows in my truck.
Yeah.
And I whoop the ever-loving shit out of him.
And
the cops show up and say, well, what happened? Well, the guy was destroying my property. I had the feeling he was going to come into my house next, so I beat his ass with a golf club. And the cop goes, okay, and then clears his call advised and goes to the next one.
That would take the problem with the police is that they are trained to follow orders. The problem with that is we are now being conditioned to follow the bad orders. As a police officer, I can make a judgment at the scene and say, hold on, this guy was defending himself. And if my supervisor tells me to arrest him, okay, I can turn around and say, no, this is a case of self-defense. You'll have to find somebody else to do it. Right. You're now you have just now committed insubordination. Well, you know what? So be it. Now, as a younger officer, Rich, I probably would have just been in lockstep with that. But as someone who has 23 years on, who is now seeing where we are because the police have become passive, because the police have become complacent, because, in fact, in some cases, the police have become complicit. They have become complicit in this.
Wow.
I now see where it becomes necessary for the police to say, the individual officers say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not arresting them. Any of these officers that participated in the search warrant on McCloskey's home, as far as I'm concerned, they are conspirators. This is a family who did absolutely nothing wrong. This is a husband and wife who wanted to defend their homes from a group of marauding savages who broke down the gate of a private community, a private neighborhood. For all intents and purposes, these criminals were on their driveway when they walked by their house.
It's infuriating.
That is a private community. It's not a public street.
It makes me absolutely furious. And you were right. You predicted several weeks ago on this program, Joe, that these criminal thugs would start taking this stuff into neighborhoods and they would start destroying property in residential areas. You are now predicting right here on PC Radio today, Friday, that this is going to then move into the suburbs and people are going to start being forcefully removed from their homes. Is it also your prediction that when somebody comes to my house to try to drag my wife out, drag my daughter out, drag my son out, drag me out, and I respond with a superior level of violence, that I'm going to go to jail and I'm going to face criminal prosecution?
It is all going to depend on the officers that respond, the supervisor responds, but most importantly, and here's the bigger problem in all this, the prosecutor. And if the prosecutor says he has to be arrested, then the police would say, no, we're not doing this. And then they say, okay, we'll send our own people in. Then go ahead. And when that homeowner has to defend himself, I mean, I don't, after 23 years, I can't even believe that this is where we are headed with this, and I can't even believe that as a police officer, I am rationalizing how this can happen.
Richard, we've talked about the tipping point several times. We thought that maybe it would be when somebody, openly targeted police and started shooting at them, but that's happening. It's happening in the streets, and that hasn't been the tipping point. Joe is theorizing about a tipping point that just might do it. That might be the thing that says to the Patriots, it's time to get up off the couch now. It's time to put the glass of bourbon down. It's time to throw the cigar over there. It's time to put my Law Dog cup of coffee down and pick up my rifle and get out there and start fighting for the cause. Richard, I mean, I don't know.
It's also a shitty time, right? We're at the apex of this transition period of people like you, Joe, who have 23 years on the job. Stu, we talked yesterday about a buddy of ours that's retiring soon.
Yeah.
Who has 20, 25 plus years on as a police officer. And so, Joe, when you are saying that these younger cops who are just on the job or been on for 10 years or less, they're going to fall in line and they're going to do what they're told and they're going to arrest that homeowner. And so now we find ourselves in a position, or at least I find myself in a position where I'm going, shit, man, I really hope you guys choose not to retire, but I can't blame you if you do. I can't blame you for walking away from hypocrisy like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Rich? Like I said, as a guy with 5 years on the job, I'd have been locked. Okay, well, buddy, listen, I'm not supposed to, I don't agree, but this is an order from my supervisor. As police, we are trained and conditioned to follow orders. And unfortunately, we're now at the point where we're following the wrong orders. But now, after 23 years, Rich, I am at the point where I'm close enough to see the edge of the cliff. And if I do this, then I have now just exacerbate this problem and then become part of the problem. I don't like the fact that I'm even discussing this, but at a point when a citizen feels that he has to defend himself against the police under these circumstances, it's going to be hard for me to argue against why he did what he did. Obviously, I don't want to see any violence come toward the police, but at the same time, the police shouldn't put themselves in position where they are arresting citizens for defending themselves. And you are seeing, we just had this today in Michigan, where the FBI arrested, I think five or six men for plotting to kidnap and possibly kill Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So we are at the point where people are actually now considering violence towards elected officials because they are seeing these officials protecting the radical leftists. That's where that mentality came from, because she's protecting them.
This is going to, I think that's the next step. I was going to ask you to predict the next step after the residential areas and dragging people out of their homes, and you just did. I think it's going to be then, if it's not people like you and I doing it for being on the right side of history, it's going to be the criminal thugs that are being pandered to and given this emboldening sense of entitled, zero repercussion type leeway that are then going to say, okay, our next step, so we took care of the businesses, we're taking care of destroying property in residential neighborhoods, we've moved into the suburbs, we're assaulting these people, these privileged people, and now it's time for us to go to the Senate. It's time for us to go to the chambers of commerce, to the White House, and physically start dragging elected representatives out of their offices. This is a very scary time, and I can't believe that we're talking about it here.
That's what I'm saying, and I believe that the people the men who planned to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer were not leftists. They were onto the other end of the spectrum, the right, because they do not like Gretchen Whitmer. They don't like her leftist policies.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, we're actually seeing a point where some people who consider themselves to be patriots or freedom fighters or whatever are actually taking overt steps, or covert steps in this case, to do something about what they perceive to be the problem. Mm-hmm. So, that being the case, the police have to make a decision. I need my paycheck to pay my bills, but Stu, my paycheck is not more important than my values. I am not going to arrest the victim. I can't stop what other cops may do, but I'm not going to do it. If it comes to the point where you say go there and arrest the victim, I'm going to walk away. I'm not going to do it, because it could be me next.
Yeah. And I believe you when you say
everyone
that. I mean,
is-
I really do, and I know that you'll be on the right side of history with this. But then who follows in your bootsteps? You know,
Exactly.
you say no, and they fire you, and then who comes after you?
Well,
and-
I
yes
can't, I
man?
can't control that. I gotta, I can only worry about what happens. You know what? I can only worry about what happens with me. If other people are inspired by that and say, okay, well, you know what, we're not gonna go along with this. Good. That's actually what you need, because at a point, Stu, mark my words, a motivated person who feels he has nothing to lose, who then once gets to the point of basically, he resolves that I'm either going to go to jail or I'm going to die. A motivated person who feels cornered is going to take violent action against some of these left elected officials who are protecting criminals. Because at some point, they're going to see that it is these officials, the Kim Gardners, the Larry Krasners, okay, the Elon Omars, who are protecting this, who are allowing this to happen. The police are just an arm. They're an extension of all that. They're not the real problem. The source of the problem are these elected officials who are targeting law-abiding citizens and protecting criminals. Mark my words, Stu, at some point, somebody is going to react violently towards them. And then we're going to see what happens from there. Because as we all know, this stuff tends to catch like wildfire.
How do you think we got to this point, Joe? Do you think it was because the elected officials and administrations and police higher ups are just trying to avoid all the civil unrest and the burning and the looting? I guess my thought is that's a huge part of it. That, well, if we just look like we agree or we comply with what they say, then they're not going to burn down our city.
But that's not happening, is it, Rich? They actually are. They're actually doing worse. Since cops started kneeling for this dead career criminal known as George Floyd, for this dead home invader, since cops started kneeling for him, it's actually been worse. It's gone on for months, and it's gone on all across the country. It used to be localized. We'd only see it in Ferguson. We see it in Baltimore. Now we're seeing it everywhere. Again, I haven't been wrong about any of these predictions yet. They will be coming to the suburbs because they feel that they can get a bigger impact. And at that point, people have to realize that they have the Second Amendment for a reason. And if you did not take the steps to arm yourself, to train for this, I don't know what to tell you. You might begin dragged out into the street. They will be doing this. People think I am just alarmist in my predictions, but they have been right all along. I've been warning them about this for 5 years. And I you know what? I do not like to be political, okay? But I'm not really feeling so great about Trump's chances lately. And if we lose him and the Senate, this will become normalized. Thug activity will become normalized. They will be the victims.
This will be a third world country. And we're already starting to see that in the democratically controlled cities. So if you want to see New York come to you, if you want to see Baltimore come to you, if you want to see urban Minneapolis come your way, if you want to see Los Angeles on your doorstep, in your neighborhood, in your suburb, where you've worked hard for your entire life to provide sanctity, solemn, safe haven place for your kids, where you mow your lawn and you watch your kids play on your swing set. If you want that to be destroyed, burned, and if you want to be assaulted while you watch your wife get raped in your lawn or in your home, this is what's happening. Continue to vote Democrat. I'm telling you, that is what's going to happen. It's no coincidence that where all of this is happening is in liberal, progressive-run cities. And if anybody can give me any circumstance at all whatsoever how that is off base, or show me any factual data where that could be inaccurate, I'm here. I'm on every social media platform that there is. Give me a valid argument. I dare you. It's just not going to happen. Joe, you're absolutely right.
Rich asked, how did we get to this point? Here's how we got to this point. We, as law enforcement and as society, said, okay, let them, just let them block off this street, and you know what? They'll move through eventually. Well, you know what? They did move through, but then they moved through to the next street, to the next city, and you allowed this to happen. It all comes back to Ferguson, Stu. They had a perfect chance to stop them with the necessary violence, with the legal violence. I don't advocate for violence against people protesting lawfully. But when they're blocking street, when they're throwing firebombs, violence is the only response.
Yeah, and this thing may actually come to fruition on November 3rd too, because we're saying if this is what you want, then then go ahead and vote one way. But what about the people that don't want to vote like that, and they can't get into the voting booths because of the intimidation? Because these same people who are knocking down blockades, these same people who are throwing rocks unprovoked through the windows of residential homes, where families are having their movie night, eating their popcorn, enjoying the breadth of protection that they are supposed to be afforded by the police, that are not afforded that right because of political bureaucrats and radical leftists infiltrating the command staffs at these departments. They're not going to be able to go cast a vote for Donald Trump because they're going to be beaten. They're going to be maimed. They're going to be assaulted, and they could lose their life by going to vote for him. Mm-hmm. They can't beat him, so they're going to cheat him.
Well, I think that's why so many people have applied for
Go ahead, Rich.
ballots. I think that's why so many people have applied for absentee ballots, because they don't want to deal with that bullshit at the polls when comes time to walk in there. And the absentee thing drives me nuts. I think everybody should have to go somewhere and cast your vote and make sure that it's true.
With the exception of deployed soldiers that are overseas. Yeah. That's it.
Correct.
I agree with you 100%.
I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. You're the guest. This is your show for the next 1 minute.
Okay. So my prediction with this is we will eventually see a point where the police stand around and actually watch people being assaulted. And the officers are not going to be able to take action because they're afraid of getting in trouble. They'll call their supervisor a scene. The supervisor will call more officers a scene. Pretty soon you have 20 officers standing there and watching somebody get assaulted. All right? Research the Kitty Genovese case from New York in the 1960s. Supposedly, all these people stood around while she got attacked and killed and didn't take action because they were waiting for the next guy to do it. This can happen with us. We're already being conditioned in this regard.
Yeah.
So this is what's going to happen, Stu. I hate to say it, but I have not been right about this. I'm not slick on politics, but on this stuff, I hate to say it, but I've been dead accurate.
Joe the Cop, a 23-year cop and a currently working law enforcement officer. He drinks Law Dog coffee as well. He's here every single Friday. We'll see you next week. I'm out of time, Joe. Thanks a lot for being here. And he's not a fearmonger. He's absolutely right. Richard, your last words for this Friday afternoon.
Coming at you soon, Joe the Cop for governor of whatever state he decides to run in.
I could get with that. Remember, also, tomorrow is the Minnesota Red Wave. Make sure that you're there, or whatever it's called. I don't know. It's the big parade full of great patriots that support a free country.
Convoy.
The Convoy, yes. It's got some name to it. I don't know what it is. Go to Rocky Stucci Media for details, or Minnesota Conservatives, the group.
With a domestic population of 350 million and 7.8 billion worldwide, we thank the 12 of you that listen to this garbage.
It's garbage, and I'll tell you why.
The patriotically correct radio show.
Eat me.
With Stu and Rich. Worldwide at thepcradioshow.com.
Hey, it's Stu Peters and Richard Leonard for Law Dog Coffee Company. Welcome to Law Dog Coffee Company. Some heroes wear capes, ours wear a badge. Every single purchase you make goes to support law enforcement. So if you love the cops, if you support law enforcement, if you don't agree with defunding the police, if you want to make sure that they have good equipment, if you want to take care of law enforcement families, this is the only coffee that you want to drink. And not only that, their purpose is great, but the coffee is even better. You can sign up online very easily for freshly roasted specialty coffee to your door. You can choose weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly deliveries. Gifts and apparel also available. Law Dog Coffee Company, located at lawdogcoffee.com. Lawdogcoffee.com. That's lawdogcoffee.com. Use the promo code PC Radio for 10% off every purchase.